For the interview integration midterm paper, I decided to interview Mrs. Fisher. Mrs. Fisher is a graduate of the University of Tennessee, Knoxville. She earned her Bachelor of Arts in English Literature and has a Master of Science in Curriculum and Instruction from Tennessee. Also, she received a Master of Education in Administration and Supervision from Middle Tennessee State University. She has been teaching grades 3 to 5 for about 13 years now. Her family and her moved to Indiana in May of 2011. Her husband works here at Purdue as a 4-H extension specialist. Aaron, her husband, and Terry have 2 children, Lauren, who is in 3rd grade at Burnett, and Matthew, who is 4. Burnett Elementary's principal had the idea that each classroom would have their own theme. So Mrs. Fisher decided to make her room's theme Fisher's Farmer's Market. All around her room, she has bread and some corn on the cob and a lot of old Coke bottles that are just stored in boxes. All the students seemed to like the theme. Mrs. Fisher said that when she came to Burnett, from her previous school, that she did not know how having a class theme would really go. But she said that after this she would not want to go back to any other style. Having a class theme can help the students not only learn from the lessons that she teaches for school, but also when they have days off and they have free time, they can look at the things around the room and can remember things that they might find at a farmer's market. I was introduced to Mrs. Fisher through my EDCI 205 class. For this class, you travel to the local elementary school and you shadow a teacher for around 8 weeks. The reason for this is to make sure that you truly want to be a teacher and get a feel for what it would be like on an everyday basis as a job. So on one of my visits, I decided to interview her for this paper. During the interview, I asked questions to get to know her a little bit more since I'd be in there for around 8 weeks. She told me a lot about all the schools that she has taught at, due to her moving for her husband's job. And then some family, characteristics and talked about her kids a little bit. But then we mainly focused on 3 different topics. The topics were maintaining eye contact, how to avoid problem solving, and how to be respectful at the job. I picked these 3 topics because they seem to be the skills that I am currently struggling with the most. And I also wanted to gain some insight on how I will be able to use these skills with being a teacher. I asked if she finds it difficult to maintain some eye contact with the students. She said that you don't really realize how conscious you have to be until you're actually in the classroom. She said if a student comes up to you and asks you a question, they want your focus strictly on them and only them. Little kids can be needy sometimes, but she said that you just have to keep in mind that at one point we were at the same age and same point in their lives. She said sometimes that when she would be grading tests and a student comes up to her desk while she's grading, they'll approach her with a question and she'll listen to the question, but she's still grading. She said that one time actually she was grading and a student asked her a question and then stopped and realized that Mrs. Fisher wasn't looking back at her, so she said, "Oh, I'm not going to continue until you look at me." So it's kind of like she was kind of being rude back to the teacher, but at the same time, it made such an impact on Mrs. Fisher, as she said. She said after that, she kept her eye contact with her students all the time. She said it was just a little curl, but it improved her eye contact skills immensely, she said. After she told me this story, it made me realize how conscious I have to be on my eye contact with little kids because I plan on teaching, 2nd or 3rd grade. When I become a teacher in the future, I will make sure that I maintain eye contact with every student. Whoever asks a question and I have to help them. When I'm looking at a class, I'll make sure that I, look at people in the eye. And I was able to observe this while I was having my interview. I interviewed for a little bit and then I observed for the rest of the time. So just a simple turning of your head can change a little kid's mindset on maybe asking you questions in the future or not. Next, I asked her how she went about avoiding problem solving. She said that at times it can be difficult to guide them in the right direction without actually giving them the answer. Mrs. Fisher said that you have to be really careful with your wording. Sometimes the kids, what you said was the answer sometimes, and they might remember that, and that could be the wrong thing. She said you have to make sure you understand where in the question that the student is actually struggling in. It could be finding the information or even the right wording for the answer. She said that one thing that she usually does is ask the student where in the question they're actually having trouble with. After that, she'll proceed to do a follow-up with that answer that the student gives them. She wants the student to get the most out of the lesson, and for some students, it could just be them reading the context, but others, they may need assistance from you. And if you have the right skills to assist them to the right answer, then they will learn it even better. Mrs. Fisher said that if you give the student the answer without them actually looking into it, they don't really learn anything. She told me that some other questions that I could use in the future to help a student find the answer rather than just giving it to them. I learned how to go around problem solving for students and asking the students what they want to understand or what they don't understand and need help on is a great start to helping a student find the answer. As a teacher one day, I will be able to use this knowledge and demonstrate good problem solving skills. We finished the interview up with respecting students. I asked if there was any times in the classroom that she has had to be very careful with how she handles a situation. Yes, there are going to be problem kids in every class that you have, but you have to make sure that you respect them while trying to fix their problem by not embarrassing them at any means. She said if a student acts up in class, she will sometimes say their name. Like if a student is talking while she is, Mrs. Fisher would just say their name and then continue on with her lesson. She said she does not want to take away any teaching and learning time from the rest of the students just because of one person, like a class clown or someone. Mrs. Fisher went on to say that once the students have free time to like work on homework and work on the computers, she pulls the student aside to talk to them. For one incident, I was actually in the classroom when it happened. A student keeps forgetting his glasses at home and does not seem to find a problem with that. He can't really see his work, so I mean you need your glasses. And so she decided, instead of talking to the student in front of the whole class while everybody was watching, she waited until the lesson was done and everybody was working on their own work, and she quietly went over there and tapped him on the shoulder and took him into the hall. She did this because they were in private and everyone didn't have to know his business. And she showed respect by not talking to the one problem student in front of the whole entire class and taking away from class time. By taking out into the hallway also makes a greater impact on the student. Mrs. Fisher said that the student actually rarely forgets his glasses now ever since that she had that talk with him. So I learned that having respect not only means acting your age and being mature, at your job, but also being a role model to the students as well. When she took the student out in the hall, she showed respect for the little kid's feelings. He might have been embarrassed if she said something in person in front of the whole entire class. So she decided to take her time out and take him out to the hall. You want to remove them from the class and talk to them one-on-one to make some sort of impact on them because they're little. They don't really know what's good and bad. So in the future, I plan to apply how she takes the student out of the classroom to talk to them about a certain situation rather than taking class time away and talking to the student in front of the entire class. Overall, conducting this interview and being able to observe Mrs. Fisher really teaches me a lesson every time I go in and visit. I've learned some insights on what it's going to take and some skills that I will need to have as a teacher in the future. Thank you.